بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على الرسول الكريم ربنا تقبل منا زدنا علما وحكمة وهدى اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد عبدك ورسولك النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما أعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا اللهم آتنا نفوسنا تقواها وزكها أنت خير من زكاها أنت وليها ومولاها اللهم ارحم شيوخنا أما بعد. All the praises belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the things they happen because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we do all the things, everything in the universe, they happen by the commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah send His salawat wa salam, the peace and blessings upon His final prophet and messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And that's the example that we follow, and that's our prophet and messenger that we follow, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So continuing on the fiqh al-Hanbaliyah, in the Hanbali school, on the rulings pertaining to the marriage and the divorce. And this is the commentary given by Ibn Qudamah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy upon him, who was one of the main students of Imam Ahmad Ibn Hanbal. And the section we're covering today is raja'a, which is returning after divorce. So what happens is when a person in Islam, when a person pronounces a divorce, it's not final and over like that. What they have to do is there's a buffer period that a person may have where they can reconciliate, and then the divorce is canceled out. So this is the section about that talks about that, about returning the raja taken back after a person, they pronounce a divorce in Islam. If you'd like to read the first one, yeah. I'm here joined by Sheikh Lisan here and Sheikh Omar in Grand Prairie, Texas, inshallah. And Allah bless all of you, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ar-Rujua.
Yes.
Ar-Rija'a.
Yes, Raja'a.
Raja'a.
When you say Rujua, I'm sure I know.
Raja'a, the return after the divorce.
Mm-hmm.
إذا طلق امرأته أقل من 3 فله رجعتها ما دام في العدة. When a man divorces a woman less than 3 times, and he can take her back as long as she is still in the iddah.
Yes. So what happens is if a person, they divorce their wife, then what happens is she stays with the person and he can take her back as long as it's not been the 3rd divorce. And we had last time in the school of Ahmad Ibn Hanbal that it only counts as 1 divorce until a person, they take the woman back and have the sexual relation with her, then it increments. Even if a person, they say 1,000,000 times, I divorce you, on one occasion it only counts as 1. And we talked about that last time in the last lesson that we had. So what happens is, if it's less than 3 divorces, in other words, if a person, they divorced a wife, took her back, then it increments as 2, then divorced her a 2nd time, took her back, then the 3rd time, if he did that, then he can't take her back if it's 3 times. But if it's less than the 3 times, then he can take her back. That's perfectly fine. And what happens is she has an iddah term. She has a term where she stays in the home of the husband. And there's another lesson about that on how long the iddah is. The iddah is 3 menstrual cycles for a woman that menstruates, 3 months for a woman that's not menstruating, and then for a woman that's pregnant, when she gives birth. So that time is that he can take her back any time during that time, during the iddah time, as long as it's not the 3rd divorce. So that's the case about that. And in Islam we have that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for people to, in the marriage, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained for them to conciliate and be together, not something happens suddenly in one night and and then that's it, they're separated forever. So you have that in Islam where you have the returning after a person, they pronounce a divorce. So this is what the first point is. As long as it's not the 3rd divorce, then they can reconciliate. The man can take her back as long as she's in the iddah term. Okay, you read number 2, Sheikh Omar. Mm-hmm. So what happens is the way the man takes her back is if they have the sexual relation with her. So what happens is if he divorces her, she's got to stay in the same home as the husband, and during that time, then what happens is, maybe the man is attracted to his wife and he'll have the sexual relation with her, And then if he has a sexual relation with her, that means he took her back. And again, the purpose of marriage in Islam, literally the word is nikah, is having sexual relation. And when a person they get married, it's allowed for them to have sexual relation. And outside of the marriage, outside of the nikah, it's a big sin in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the zina. And even you see in some cases of a person, they do that outside of the nikah, outside of the marriage, even a person they're stoned to death. So that's how serious it is in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you see the purpose of the marriage, it's true that the people they live together and things like that. But the main thing about it is that a person they're allowed to have a sexual relation with their wife. And that's what it says over here. When he has a sexual relation with her, even though he did pronounce a divorce, it's not over and final, then that's it, they're back together. This was it, number 2. Okay, Sheikh Lisan, let's see number 3.
بغير عوض. So without any compensation for annulling the marriage. So like basically he doesn't have to pay her anything?
Yes. So what happens is, normally speaking, when a person they get married to a woman, he has to give her the sadaq and he has to give her the dowry and the mahr, when they start the marriage. But when he takes her back, then he doesn't have to give her another mahr, another dowry to take her back. If it's a new marriage, then he has to do that. Okay, inshallah. Okay, that's another thing I think, I don't know if this is going to come up later on or not, but what happens is if it's after the dowry, if it's after the iddah period, let's say a person, they divorce their wife and the 3 menstrual cycles go by, then that's it, the divorce is finalized. Then let's say after that they want to get back together. So what they have to do in that case, they have to do a new marriage contract with a new dowry and new witnesses and everything after that, because the divorce is final, but they still can get back together with a new contract. So in that case, he has to give her a compensation. He has to give her what's agreed upon as a dowry. But in this case, where it's before the iddah is over, before the buffer period is over, then he doesn't have to give her any compensation. Just take her back, that's it, and the marriage continues as if he never pronounced a divorce on her. But if it's past the iddah, if it's past the buffer period, then they want to reconciliate, then they have to do what's formal. I mean, easy marriage contract, and then they'll be back together as a new marriage, and they'll still be husband and wife. Okay, inshallah. So that's number 3. When he takes her back, then he doesn't have to give her anything as a compensation to take her back. Okay, number 4, Sheikh Omar.
Okay. أو عبد أقل من اثنين اثنتين.
Yes. And what that means for a slave, it's 2 divorces. So for a free person, a man can pronounce divorce on the wife up to 3 times. Then if they want to get back together, she has to marry somebody else, have the relation with the other person, and he has to divorce her, then he can get back. But the Sheikh here is saying that for a slave woman, then it's only 2 divorces, it's not 3 divorces. Then twice, then they can't get back together unless, the same deal involves. So free person, it's 3 divorces. For a slave, it's 2 divorces.
What is the reason that they're saying there's only 2 divorces for the slave?
Well, they have the rules in the Quran where for a slave they get half of the things. So that's how they did it in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba and the Sheikh. The Sheikh Ahmad Ibn Hanbal, he looked at what people they went by, and he saw that that's the rules that they followed. But Ahmad Ibn Hanbal was very keen on following the things in the Hadith and the Sunnah, and the way that people did things. He never made his own judgments on things, so he was very strong about doing that. So that's apparently what the ruling was back then in the time of Ahmad Ibn Hanbal. So for slaves, it's less. It's not 3 divorces; it's 2 divorces for slaves. And the other rules also go for the other things. Also for slaves, usually it's less than free people. So that's what's mentioned here for the ruling that Ahmad ibn Hanbal that he explained from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So for the slave, it's 2 divorces, and then that's it. It's they can't get back together.
So
free
is
person is 3.
Is the idea that there are, like Allah, He says, "Al-talaq marratan," that the divorce is twice, meaning the revocable divorce is twice. But
Yes.
but by reasoning, they're saying that the slave woman, she only gets half of that, which is 1.
Right.
Because there
yes.
is another ayah that says she gets half of something else, right? She gets
Right.
half
Yes.
of
Yes.
the mahar or something.
Yes. I mean, the general principle is for slaves they don't have as much full things as free people, and that was a ruling that they had for slaves back then.
Right.
Nowadays, we don't have too much information about what the ruling are for slaves, because there's not really any slavery in the world. But in that time, they had a lot of slaves, and that's what they went by. For slaves, they had, these things, and the rules are a little bit different for slaves than for a free person. So that's what he mentions here, that for a
So
slave,
what's
it's true.
happening here is that a free man is marrying a slave, or is it a slave marrying a slave?
I believe it's a free man marrying a slave. I believe that's the case. It could be the other way too. Got to look in the details in the books of fiqh, which one it refers to. But that's the thing to keep in mind. A person, they can marry free people, and they can marry slaves, and that's allowed to do that, to have the marriage. And for a slave, it's only twice that they can have it before they can't get back together.
So
Free
hang
woman.
on. So if a man marries a slave, then is she her slave? Is she his slave, or is she someone else's slave?
No, he can marry somebody else's slave. No.
So then she still has to
Technically.
report back to the other slave, other master.
Yeah, that's something that's problematic. So she can't get married to the person except the permission of her master.
Right. So
that's
then
another case.
essentially she would be freed then. I mean, maybe.
Well, yeah, that could be the case, because usually the slave is for the master, and he has a relation with her. But they get married. Sometimes they get married to other slaves, and sometimes they get married to other free people. So that's the case too for the slave woman. But she has to do it with the permission of her master, because the slave is owned by her master. And then that's the case for it.
Okay.
So that's the case of a person, they marry a slave. And maybe you're right, maybe it could be a slave marrying a slave, because that was in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Barira, she was a slave of I think of Aisha radiallahu anha, and they freed her, and she was married to what's the name of a slave man. They were married together, and then when she became free, then she had a choice whether she wanted to stay with him or not, and she said, "I'm not going to stay with him." So that's what's mentioned. So you have the case where slaves that get married as well. So in the slavery, the rulings are a little bit less. That's mentioned in the points that they have by Ibn Qudamah. He mentions things about slaves, and usually it's less than free people. So that's the case here for a slave. It's twice. And bear in mind the things that say in the Quran, you have to follow the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for the explanation. Because sometimes the Quran is in context of a particular thing, or specific for a specific scenario, and they're going to look at the details. Like for example, it says in the Quran, وَطَعَامُ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ حِلٌّ لَكُمْ. Yes, and the food of the people of the book is allowed for you, and they eat pork, right? So you can't go by that. They say, okay, you're going to eat pork, because Allah says it's allowed for you, the food of the people of the book. So you look at the details, the explanation from the Sunnah, and not just in the Hadith, but you see like the Sahaba, and they explain these rulings. And Ahmad Ibn Hanbal, he learned from his shuyukh, the different rules, and he doesn't say anything from his judgment. He goes explicitly by the Hadith text and by the knowledge that came to him. Okay, inshallah, so that for a slave, it's only 2 times, not 3 times, before they can't get back together, and then she has to, okay, inshallah, so that's the point there.
So لقول الله تعالى وبعولتهن أحق بردهن في ذلك إن أرادوا إصلاحا.
Yes.
Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that their men have a right to revoke that if they want reconciliation.
Yes.
Meaning, like a husband that divorces his wife for the first time or the second wife,
Yes.
then he has more right that he takes her back.
No, the husband has a right to take her back.
Right.
Bu'ulatuhunna, that means their husbands, ahakku biradihim, has the right to take her back if they want a conciliation.
And he only has more right within the iddah, right?
Yes,
Or
the
does he
iddah.
also have more right after the iddah?
No, during the iddah. It talks about the other situations afterwards,
Yeah.
where it's past the iddah, then there's different rulings about it.
So in the
during the
iddah,
iddah,
he
he has a
has
right
that
to take her
right.
back. So he can take her back if he wants to. Even if she doesn't want to, the wife doesn't want to, he can take her back. Because, in Islam, normally speaking, the man has a right for divorce, and the woman, if she wants to separate, she has to go to the Muslim judge and khula, and then, they're going to look at the situation and then proceed from there. That's the case for it. So this here is what happened in the explanation from the Umdah, the Sheikh, he mentioned some ayahs too, explaining the reasons for some of the rulings. So he mentioned that in the previous ruling that they can go back if it's not the third divorce, and he mentioned the ayah that mentions that in the Quran. وَبُولَتُهُنَّ أَحَقُّ بِرَدٍ فِي ذَلِكَ إِنْ أَرَادُوا إِصْلَاحًا. So Allah says that in the Quran. You know, that the bu'ulatuhunna, the husbands, the men, they have the right to take her back if they want the conciliation. And that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made that as to keep the conciliation between people, not something happen. And I think I mentioned that earlier. One night and extreme event happened, and that's it. They're separated forever. You know? So you have this case here where you have the iddah, the buffer period, where the people they can reconcile. Inshallah. All right, let's go to number 6. Sheikh Umar.
والرجعة أن يقول لرجل من المسلمين أشهد أنني قد رجعت.
Yes.
رجالتي.
Yes.
زوجتي.
Yes, so he's going more along the lines of what's mentioned in the ayah. وَاشْهَدُوا ذُوَا عَدْلٍ مِّنْكُمْ, it's mentioned there. So in that case, if he mentions to 2 other people that I've taken my wife back and they witness to it, and then that's along with the ayahs in the Quran. Let's mention that. But that's not a condition for him to take her back. If he just has a sexual relation with her.
One of the ways he can take her back
Right,
is he
yes.
goes has 2 men.
Yes, if two people witness to it, then that's there. But that's not necessary. He just has a sexual relation with her, then he can take her back. And that's what it means when a person, they take their wife back, they have a sexual relation. So that's what the marriage is about, So that's what happens. So this is the other case.
Or he says that I held her or I took her back.
Yes,
So
yes.
that's fine.
Yes, that's another wording. Because a person, they don't have to explicitly say, "Oh, I take you back." You can say as a witness to other people, "I'm holding on to my wife. I didn't separate from her." That's a witness. That's what he's saying.
Makes sense.
The two people they witness, because it's mentioned in the Quran, وَشْهِدُوا ذُوَا عَدْلٍ مِّنْكُمْ. But if you look at the the way that people do the things, that's not really a requirement. Like in the marriage you have to have 2 witnesses, and if you don't have the witness, then the marriage is faulty. It's not correct. But in this case here, it's not like a strong ruling that you have to have 2 witnesses to take a woman back in the returning. All right, inshallah. So you read number 8, Sheikh Omar.
من غير ولي.
Yes. So when he takes her back, she doesn't need to have her wali there to take her back. In the marriage, she needs a wali to get married, her guardian. And then with the permission of the wali, he looks into the situation, makes sure that who she's marrying to is suitable for her. But in taking back, she doesn't have to get the permission of the wali for the man to say, "I'm taking you back." So there's no wali, there's no guardian involved in the case of taking back.
وَلَا صَدَاقَ يَزِيدُ. And
Yes.
there's no extra dowry or amount.
Right,
that
yes.
he gives.
Yes, it's not a new marriage, so you don't have to give an extra dowry or extra amount. The new marriage, you have to give the dowry and the sadaq or the mahr. The new marriage. But this one here, when you take them back, there's no new dowry or new sadaq. Just take her back, without that. Okay, should we read number 10?
ولا رضاعها.
Yes. So again, I think I mentioned that before. Even if she doesn't want to go back, the man has a right to take her back. On that, if you pronounce divorce on her, and then she's in her iddah period, and she's like, I don't really want to go back, but he can take her back even if that's the case. No, because the thing is, a woman should not try to separate from her husband unless she has a good reason. That's something that's really looked at as something that's not good. There's a hadith that says that if a woman, she wants to separate from her husband and she doesn't have a good reason, then she's not going to smell the Jannah for 500 years. There's literally the text that says that. So, a person to keep that in mind, a woman should not want to separate from her husband unless there's a good reason behind it. So, in this particular case, if the husband wants to take her back, then even if she doesn't want to, then he can take her back. And then if she still wants to separate from him, then she has to go through other means, going through a Muslim judge or imam, and then they can look into the situation and see what she needs to do to separate in that case. Okay, inshallah, read number 11.
وَإِنْ وَطَأَهَا كَانَ رَجْعَةٌ. And
Yes.
if he has sex, she has returned.
Yes. So I think we mentioned that before. when the man has the sexual relation with the wife, then they've gone back together. That's that's indication that they're back together. So that's another thing. So what would happen is maybe an extreme event happened one night and the husband got mad or very angry or something like that. So I divorce you, or maybe said a lot of other things. But then what she has to do is stay in the same home together during the iddah period, which is 3 months. And then during that time, then if the husband he has a sexual relation with her, then that's it. They're back together. The divorce is canceled out, as long as it's not the third one, as we mentioned that before. Okay, inshallah. So if he has a sexual relation with her, then they're back together. Raja'ah. That's this chapter. And going back. All right. Give me the next one, Sheikh Omar.
ورجعت زوجته يلحقها الطلاق. A returnable wife reaches the divorce.
Yes. So what it is Raja'iyah, that's the term that they use where it's a revocable divorce. That means she's able to go back. They're able to get back together. So the term that they use is Raja'iyah, which means revocable. That means a person, they pronounce a divorce, and it doesn't mean it's final. That's it, it's over. What it is, it's they're able to go back. And then what they do is that they have to wait. They have to wait to finalize it, which is the iddah period. Then it reaches the full-fledged divorce after that. So that's what it's saying over here.
So what does the Arabic mean? وَالرَّجْعِيَّةُ.
Usually when they put ya on the end, it means nisbah, that means attributed to it.
So the return of the wife.
Yes, returnable.
يَلْحَقُهَا الطَّلَاقُ. What does يَلْحَقُهَا الطَّلَاقُ mean?
That means it reaches the divorce once if they don't get back together during that time.
So what it's saying is, if they don't get back together in the iddah, then the divorce is
right. Yes, and that's the term they use, raja'iyah. That means it's revocable. It's not finalized. No, it's not over. It's returnable during that time. And then once the iddah is over, then it reaches the full divorce. Then she can get married to somebody else. That's what that means.
Okay. ولا تزين لزوجها وتشرقت له.
Yes.
So she should beautify herself for her husband, and she should honor him.
Yes. So what happens is if there is a divorce, then what the woman should do, she should beautify herself, and she should honor him and be respectful of him, say things for him, and then he'll take her back, inshallah, Allah willing, inshallah. There won't be, they won't spend the full time, and then that's it. They're going to be separated. They'll still get back together. And that's something that's, that's incumbent on the woman, that's encouraged for the woman to do, to beautify herself and attract a man to her so that they'll reconciliate, so the divorce won't be finalized. That's the case. And again, she stays in the same home where the man lives, and during all that time, the iddah period, she beautifies herself and she says nice things to the husband, attracts the husband to her, and then, they get back together, Allah willing, inshallah.
There's more. وَلَهُ وَطْءُهَا وَالْخَلْوَةُ وَالسَّفَرُ بِهَا. And he should have sex with her and be intimate with her, like be alone with her and travel with her. So he should like, it's on him to.
Yes. Yes. Once they have the revocable divorce, the Raja'iyah, the revocable one, then he can travel with her and have sex with her because it's returnable. So he's able to do that. And what else is be intimate with her because it's not, the divorce is not finalized, so they can do all those things. And if he does that, then that's it. They return together. They're back together again. The divorce is canceled out. It's not finalized. The divorce.
Yeah.
It says number 14. Okay, inshallah, let's go to number 15, Sheikh Omar. Mention number 15. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you doing, Akhi Kareem?
When she returns to him, the number of divorce remains.
وإذا رجعتها عادت على ما باقي من طلاقه.
Yes, so what this means is that it doesn't reset the number of divorces if he takes her back. So let's say the person, they pronounce the divorce one time, and then they're in the revocable divorce, then he takes her back. So the next time he pronounces the divorce, it doesn't go to zero, and then it's one time. It becomes two times.
So now it's the second time and
yes.
the third time.
It
adds up.
Right, yes. And then if he's done that two times, then it doesn't go back to zero. No? Then it becomes, if he says it one more time after that, it's 3 times, and that's it. After 3 times, he can't take her back after that. So it doesn't get reset if he takes her back. It doesn't get set to zero. It still accumulates. You know? The first divorce counts, and then if he does it again, it becomes a second one. It doesn't become the first one again, you know, if he takes her back. You know? So that's the point that's there. Okay, do you like to read number 16? Who's there?
Me?
Yes, go ahead, that's one, brothers. Right?
16. If he leaves her and divorce is finalized, she marries someone else, and that divorce is finalized, and then returns and marries the remaining number of divorces.
Okay, this is a very interesting scenario, no? Okay, let's say a person divorces his wife, okay? And the iddah period is over. So how many divorces is that? 1 divorce, right? Then she marries somebody else, and he divorces her, and then they get back together. Then he divorces her again. How many numbers is that?
2.
2. Okay, it doesn't get reset. No, it doesn't get reset.
Oh, so she gets back to the original person.
Yes, so
So
still
the
it remains
reset
that.
doesn't happen.
Right, yes. It doesn't happen in that scenario. Only happens if it's 3 divorces, then it gets reset. No.
To 0?
Yes, yes. Because the 3 divorces, she can't get back together with him, and then she's got to marry somebody else and have a relation with him, and he divorces her, then she can get back together to him, then it gets reset to 0. But if it's less than 3 divorces, and she marries somebody and gets back, it doesn't get reset to 0. It still accumulates. Okay, is that clear on that point, Sheikh Omar? My brother Salim Bhai?
Yeah, so it's, yes.
Yes, so that's a very interesting scenario.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Basically, it's just the carry forward. Basically, the carry forward.
Right, yes.
I would imagine that it would get reset. That's what I thought would happen. But
Yeah, this is the Hanbali school. Maybe if you look at some other schools, they might have a different ruling, but this is
Well,
the
some of the
same for
schools,
Ahmad
as I
Ibn
was saying,
Hanbal.
Sheikh, yesterday, that some of the scholars do say, even after 3, you want to come back. Okay, that's fine. We mess out. That's fine.
no, I don't think anyone says that.
Yeah, nobody says that. I think
Yeah,
they're
'cause
saying
it's
that
clear in the Quran, you can't do that.
they're saying that if a person pronounces it 3 times,
Then it only counts
it
as
only
one.
counts as 1, then they can get back together.
Do you have to consummate the marriage with the other guy, or just take it?
No, they're saying that it counts as 1 divorce, not a 3
No.
divorces.
If it's a 3 divorce, and then a lot of times, I think this is one of the biggest contentious issue, because some people say, oh, okay, let's go ahead and marry some random guy here, and then he just divorces in the night. That's it. Not even, so,
Yes.
that,
Well,
does
what
it have to
happens is
consummate the marriage?
what happens is the opinion of some of the ulama. They say that if a person they pronounce a divorce 3 times, then it counts as 3 divorces. But what the sheikh is saying, that it doesn't count as 3 divorces; it counts as 1 divorce. Then they can get back together. That's what he says. No,
Is it this sheikh? This sheikh, I think,
no, not
Ibn
this one.
Qudamah doesn't say that.
No, he doesn't say that. The Hanbali school, they say it only counts as 1. But some of the other people, they say it counts as 3. So they're saying consider it to be 1 time, not
Well,
3
no,
times.
I thought that in the Hanbali school, it also counts as 3, right?
No, it counts as 1.
Does it really?
Yes.
I thought we had covered it, that he's saying that it counts as all 3.
Yeah, he's mentioned some scenarios that said that. But if you look at the other details, he says that it doesn't increment unless the person, they get back together and he has a sexual relation with her, then it increments. So you look at the other
So I
rulings
think
there.
definitely the Shafi'i.
Maybe if the man, I think he said that if the man has an intention to be 3 times, and then then maybe it counts as that
Sure,
as
I
serious
think
intention.
that Ibn Taymiyyah is the one that came later.
Right,
So actually,
yes.
Ibn Qudamah at his time,
Yes.
the Hanbali school was that
Right,
3
yes.
divorces together will count as
Right,
3.
yes. No, the issue is in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it only counted as 1 divorce, no matter how many times a person said divorce to their wife. In the time of Umar was seeing that people were divorcing left and right, and they were very lax on the divorcing. So he said, I'm going to make it count as 3 times.
Yeah.
So if a person, they say to their wife, you're divorced 3 times, you're divorced 3 times, not 1 time. So that's why you have some of the ulama, they go by the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that no matter how many times you do it, only counts as 1, unless they get back together, and then it increments, then it becomes 2, and so on. And the other ulama, they go by Umar radiallahu anhu, they say no, it counts as 3. So you
And I
have
think
that
to
as a
be
strong
fair,
opinion.
the majority are on the side that it counts as 3. If he says it all 3, because the Hanafis, the Shafi'is, the Malikis all say 3.
Yeah,
Even the early
there's a-
Hanbalis say 3. Except for the later Hanbalis, they say no 1.
Yeah, there are different opinions out there. That is a
Yeah.
very strong opinion because Omar radiallahu anhu, he's the one that said that opinion.
Right.
So he says that. But the thing is, if a person during that situation, you try to work on reconciliation, and a person, they can follow the other opinions if
So I think to
necessary.
answer the question of the brother is that the moment it reaches 3, it doesn't matter. No one will say that it's allowed to get back together because the Quran prohibits it clearly. So if it counts as 3, whether it's 3 separate ones or all 3 altogether, if it's counted as 3, you cannot get back together at all. It's haram, right? But then she can go marry someone else, and if he happens to then divorce her, then she can come back. You can't do this kind of planned, like I'm going to get married, and also if she marries someone else, she has to go through the consummation. Yeah.
That part.
Yes, that's okay, inshallah. We'll leave it, inshallah. I know some people, they're uncomfortable with.
All right. So point number 17 was وإذا اختلف في انقضاء عدتها فالقول قولها مع يمينها إذا ادعت من ذلك
Yes.
ممكنا.
Yes. So these points over here, the Sheikh is mentioning some specific scenarios. If the person divorced his wife, and then the time was over or something like that, then they disagree upon it. That she doesn't want to go back to him,
She's
and he
like,
says,
"It's
"No,
done.
we're still
The
in the
iddah is
iddah. I'll
over."
take you back." And she says, "No, the iddah is over." So what happens in that case? They go to the judge, and the judge has to give the ruling. And this is what Ibn Qudamah says. Ibn Qudamah says that you go with the word of the woman in that case over here, that the iddah is over, if it was possible that the iddah was
She
over.
has to swear.
Yes, and she has
And
to
it
swear
has
by
to be
it.
possible that,
Yes.
like, for example, if she's like, in 2 days my iddah is over. Okay, how'd that happen,
yes.
right?
Right,
So-
yeah, right, yeah, exactly. So that's what the Sheikh says over here. So if it was that case where they have a disagreement of whether the iddah was complete or not, then he says go by the word, by her word.
Yeah.
And when she takes an oath by it, and then they're separated. So that's.
Yeah, how would the man know what her iddah is happening or not, right? I mean, she would know.
Yes, he does. He would know that. So let's say maybe the man, after the iddah was over, that he wants to take her back, and she doesn't want to get back to him. Then he can't, then
Can't force her
he
back.
can't lie and say that, oh, if the iddah wasn't over, I'll take you back. No,
Yeah.
that's the case there. Okay, inshallah, you read number 18, inshallah.
If the husband claims that he took her back in the iddah term after
Mhm.
the iddah was over and she denies him, go by her word.
Yes, that's like repeating the previous one. Then afterwards, let's say that the iddah was over, they're separated, that's it, she's going to get married to somebody else, she doesn't want to go back to him. Then the man says, oh, I took her back, during the iddah term. And then he says, he lies like that. He said, no, I took her back while we're in the iddah. Then don't go by his word, go by her word, But she says opposite. She said, no, he didn't take me back.
Yeah.
Then he says, yes, I did take you back. He's lying.
That's
So-
why you should have witnesses, huh?
Right, yes, and you have the witnesses, and yes, that's a good point, That's what he mentioned before, to get the 2 witnesses that says, yes, I took her back, then there can't be this disagreement after.
And here's the moment, ask 2 people to come, hey guys.
No, if he mentions that to somebody, then that counts as a witness, it's not
Yeah.
something like.
So it doesn't have
No.
to be that you have to do it at
Right,
the heat of the
yes.
moment or anything.
You don't need to
Like,
notarize it,
say
no,
the
so.
brother comes to Isha and we know he's divorced, and then he comes to Isha the next day and he says, you know what, we're back together. Oh, it's done.
Yes,
She's
so
back.
that's what he said.
That's how
So
it
it's something
works.
that's very easy for the witness, it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be
formal
like some formal thing.
Notarization for
What
it,
the
not like in
people
a
heard.
marriage where you have to have 2 witnesses in a marriage,
Yeah.
just doing that. Even in that case, if a person, they just have the sexual relation, then that's sufficient, They don't need to have to necessarily have any.
I think the
about it.
problem is if they have the sexual relation and then she
Yes.
says, no, we didn't.
Oh, okay.
How is he going to prove it wrong?
Right, yeah, that's the case, yeah, that's what happened. But he says to go by her word, so.
Exactly.
That's the thing,
What
yeah.
else are we going to do?
Right, yeah, so that's, the
But
judge,
that's
he's
why
gotta,
you want the witnesses.
right, yes.
Cover
The judge
that.
has to try to figure out who is telling the truth and who's not, so that's the case over here. So he could be wrong, the judge could be wrong in the case over here. But that's what the Sheikh, he says, Ibn Qudamah, if it is different. That's why you have, in another section we have what's called the li'an,
Yeah.
where somebody that accused their spouse of zina, then they could curse each other, and then obviously one of the people are lying,
Yep.
and so then they go through the curses and then they're separated after. So that's one of the sections that we have later on.
Okay.
So this is what the Sheikh says in the Hanbali school. He do it in that particular scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just go to
وإن
the
كانت له بينة
Mhm.
حكم له بها
Mhm.
فإن كانت قد تزوجت ردت
Mhm.
إليه سواء كان دخول بين دخل بين بها الثاني أو لم يدخل بها. If you
Okay.
have clear evidence that he took her back in the iddah, then she goes back to him regardless of if he married a second wife or not.
Okay, so this is a specific scenario. Let's say the person they pronounced divorce on his wife,
Yeah.
and then he took her back, and there's evidence for it. He has proof that he took her back.
What kind
But-
of proof would he have?
Oh, right, yeah, that's good. Maybe some other people they heard it or something like that. They got two
Alright.
witnesses and other things, and
That's
then.
what I said, man. This is not-
And then later on, they're still fighting and things like that. And he
Yeah.
says, "Okay, I'm just going to marry somebody else."
Okay.
So then he marries a second, another wife,
If it doesn't
you know,
work.
and then afterwards, I want to keep the marriage with the first one.
Khalas,
And
he
then
gets
she
it.
says, you know, we're separate. He said, no, I took her back, you know, in the time. So in that particular scenario, he has proof that he did take her back.
Right.
So they still stay together. And then if she wants to separate, she has to go through the normal means of separation for a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And again, in Islam, the man, he can divorce the wife anytime. But the woman, if she wants to separate, she has to go to the Muslim judge and then you know, look into the situation and see what's necessary for her to do the khula, to do the separation. Okay, inshallah, so let's stop over here. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Do you have any questions or comments for Sheikh Lisan? Any comments?
No, I think we're good, Sheikh.
That's good? Okay, inshallah. Sheikh Omar?
Well,
We'll turn off the thing.
yeah.